Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 5-game baseball slate for you. This slate is pretty small, but it definitely has some punch to it. Everybody's expensive today, there's not a lot of value, and the pitching is somewhat annoying. So with that said, let's get into it though. I do have some core plays for you. Royce Lewis, JD Martinez, and Blake Sabal. I also considered Ozzie Albies a second base, but I'll get into that when I get into the position players. But before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really does help the channel. So let's get into our pitchers first. So our pitchers, we have them separated in P1s and P2s here today. We have three P1 options in Spencer Strider, Garrett Cole, and Sonny Gray. My top two are Spencer Strider and Sonny Gray due to their upside, whereas Garrett Cole is kind of a contrarian option against a tough matchup against the Dodgers, and he's just very unappealing today. As for the P2 options, we're going to look at Alex Cobb and Yu Darvish as the top tier plays. Now, there's a discrepancy here about Alex Cobb because it seems like uh, there's not certain if he's going to start or if it's going to be Alex uh, Descalafini. And if it's Alex Cobb, he's in play. If it's Descalafini, he's not. So do keep that in mind. And then Yu Darvish is available as a P2 option. And then I have three kind of Hail Mary options here, and Logan, Allen, Drew Smiley, and Kyle Bradish, who are cheap options but don't have the greatest upside, but do have some potential. So with that said, let's get into our catchers here. And we're going to start with Will Smith, who has some really great metrics for this matchup here against the Yankees. He's got good metrics, and he draws a good home run potential here. Though he does have a tough matchup, he definitely feels high risk because of his price, too. Now, Blake Sabal is also in play at this position, though I do have him in the outfield as well. And I do think he's a better play in the outfield because there's such a limited amount of options there. And it looks like you'll have to pay up at catcher if you do that, though. So do keep that in mind. But he definitely draws some decent metrics in this matchup, and I like his upside and his potential here. You could also consider Sean Murphy and Adley Rutschman, but they're both in tough situations as well. Catcher is a pretty expensive position, so you may have to pay down for some pitching to really feel comfortable to utilize some top options there. Moving into first base, we're going to start with Matt Olson here. Now, he's very expensive, but he has home run potential every time he comes up now. He's hitting the ball extremely well this season, home run wise, and he's on the top stack of the slate. He's also pretty chalky today. He draws a good price. This makes him hard to roster, but he definitely has great metrics and potential here. Lamont Wade Jr. is also in play at this position. He is going to be easier to roster due to his price, and he has home run potential. He's hitting the ball pretty solidly, but the matchup is not super ideal, but his metrics are good. And then Anthony Rizzo, contrarian option off of Olson. He's $1,000 cheaper. And the Yankees have some viability today, though really only at the top of their lineup. He is a good contrarian play off of Olson if you want to go that route, and he has home run potential here. As for some other guys to consider, Donovan Solano, Freddie Freeman, and Gabriel Arias. There are some decent options in different price ranges here, and multiple options. It's a solid position today. It's probably the best position on the slate by a lot. Moving into second base, we're going to start with Gabby Torres. Now, he's very expensive, and he has been a bit slumpy lately, so that is a concern. But he does draw some upside here, and, the top half of the Yankees lineup definitely has some utility in this situation. Ozzie Albies is also in play today. Now, he was very close to being a core play because he has good hitting potential. He is coming out of a slump a little bit. He's had some good games recently, and the home run metric, though, isn't great today, which is what kept him out of as a core play. But he does draw some viability on the slate, especially with such a limited options at this position. Polanco is also in play, though he definitely is high risk, high reward today, as the matchup isn't great, and he feels very similar to Albies and good metrics, but weak home run potential. You could also consider Mookie Betts at this position, but he's going to be very hard to roster as a result of his price and his matchup. There's not much value to be had at this position, or home run potential for that matter. But hopefully we can score some fantasy points with one of them today. Moving into third base, we're going to look at Jose Ramirez. He's very expensive, but he does draw some utility here, and he has hit the ball decently well this season, though his matchup isn't ideal. But his home run potential is really good here, despite the fact that he hasn't hit a ton this season. Royce Lewis looks like a really good value play today. Oh yeah, I have him as a core play, obviously. He has some really good metrics for this matchup. He can play third base or shortstop, And while he did have a bad game yesterday, he did have some potential every time up, and he did strike out, so that's a nice advantage. He definitely draws some good metrics here. Then we'll look at Manny Machado as a good contrarian option at $4,600, a little bit cheaper than Ramirez. Now, he has not hit the ball well this season, but he definitely draws upside here and has some good metrics for this situation, though he has been in a slump, so that is a concern. You could also consider Austin Riley, Kyle Farmer, J.D. Davis, Gunnar Henderson, Donovan Solano, and Hae-Sung Kim, but none of them have particularly awesome metrics. There are a lot of decent options in this matchup, in this situation, but they're all tough matchups. There is home run potential everywhere, though. The prices are also all over the place. This position is kind of wonky, I would say today at best. For a shortstop, we're looking at Xander Bogaerts. For San Diego, he draws some nice metrics here. Another guy that's been somewhat slumpy lately, but has some good metrics and draws some upside. You can also use Royce Lewis here as a potential option, and I do like him at probably shortstop better. Kyle Farmer is also in play here as a high risk, high reward play, though he is hitting the ball decently well recently, and he has some potential here. Then we'll look at Brandon Crawford, who is literally near minimum priced, and every now and then he draws a matchup potential that looks pretty solid. He also had that yesterday, and he had some good games recently, so I do think he's viable. And he is very cheap, which helps you pay for some other options, but he is somewhat of a Hail Mary play. Excuse me. Moving to the outfield, we have some good options here across the board, but they are pretty limited outside the top expensive options. Ronald Acuna Jr., Aaron Judge, and Tatis Jr. all draw great situations and great metrics for these matchups, but they are going to be hard to roster due to their prices. And then, let's see here. JD Martinez for the Dodgers is also in play. Oh, yeah, sorry. As a core play, as he has absolutely been mashing the ball lately, and he's had some really good games. He's actually averaging 16 fantasy points a game over the last 10 games, making him a great option on the slate. As for the value plays at this position, they are pretty weak today, but Michael Harris is in play as a value play. He has not hit the ball well this season, but he did show some signs a few games ago where he had a home run in a couple of good games, but he hasn't been consistent. If he can get on base, he can draw walks and he can draw stolen bases, but he's been high risk, high reward all season long. Rosario is also in play for Atlanta as he's hit the ball decently well lately. He also had 2 home runs yesterday. I don't necessarily expect him to do that again, but he definitely draws some good metrics for this matchup. Then we look at Sabal being here. He can also play in outfield. And then we'll look at Mike Yastrzemski for San Francisco. He draws some unique upside here. He has good potential, and I like his metrics. But they aren't awesome. And then Gabriel Arias is a Hail Mary call with home run potential here. He has some good metrics, but he is high risk, high reward. You could also consider Stephen Kwan, James Outman, and Ian Happ at this position. Overall, outfield is not a great position for value plays, but there are decent options. With that said, this slate is pretty rough. I don't love it, but it's a very hard slate to really probably master today. But I would definitely go with some contrarian options today because that's kind of be how you're going to win today. Strider's so expensive at pitcher, he's going to be kind of a pain as a result because he could score 45, 50 fantasy points and then be all the top lineups, or he could score really badly and be none of the top lineups. So we'll have to wait and see how this slate goes. But anyhow, thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.